My name is Roadsworth and I'm from Montreal. I am a street artist primarily, although that definition doesn't necessarily describe everything that I do. One of the pieces that I'm doing here in Kitchener for Kafka is entitled Bke DNA. I'll be using a bike to paint this Iron Horse trail that you see here, this throughway. I won't be painting the whole trail, but I'm going to be painting a good section of it, a kilometer of it, and by using this bike and a power roller, I'll have a little generator strapped to my back. The idea is to create an imprint of the bicycle with paint, sort of a record of the bike's movement by continuously coating one of the bike's tires with paint, which will then act as a stamp. The tire of the bike acts as a stamp and will stamp the ground. It's called DNA because a lot of the designs that are created sort of actually look like DNA. They're going to result in a lot of spirals and twists and turns, but it also has another meaning, I guess, which is DNA is sort of like a code of sorts, or a genetic code, and I sort of think of it in the same way. It's creating a genetic code for the trajectory, really, of a bike, sort of telling a story of movement. I don't know if I can describe myself. Roadsworth I consider as an aspect of my personality. Roadsworth started out as sort of a form of activism. I started out by painting bike paths, creating, I guess, fake bike paths around the streets of Montreal, and that sort of led to a larger project involving paint and the road, in particular, road being my primary canvas. Usually I'm known mostly for altering road markings and sort of tweaking urban spaces. I've been involved in different contexts, not just painting on roads, paint on walls and indoor spaces and different contexts, trying to experiment and getting into sculpture and just trying to push my own envelope. I didn't start out thinking I was doing art per se. It was more of a form of activism which actually developed and evolved into what I'd consider a more artistic practice. For me, 9/11 was sort of a spark, if you will. It's just something that galvanized me and I guess gave me the justification that I needed to break the law, really. This event in Kitchener at Kafka really kind of gave me the opportunity to try it out on a stretch of ground, so it's exciting for me. I normally do use stencils or something similar to stencils, some form of mask. I mean, a stencil is a kind of a way to mask things. In this case, Bke DNA is using the tire of the bike to create an impression. I guess that's more like a stamp than a stencil, but it is similar in the sense that there's a pattern that's being repeated, and so it does sort of fit, I think, with the philosophy of stenciling, if you will. And the role of street art for me, it's like an alternative form of media. It's an alternative to what we usually see in the streets, which is advertising, government, directives. That's really that's really all we see in the streets, other than, or graffiti. So it's an alternative form of expression, and I think as long as there's a need for that, and as long as there are these other, things like advertising and etc., then there will always be a need for it. I see that there's so much potential for it to grow. The public space is such a charged space politically and socially, and as long as that remains the case, there will always be a need for street art, I think, and an interest for it. Public art, that could describe a lot of things. There's more to the human experience than buying and selling stuff. I'm not saying that's not important. I think it's an important part of the human experience, but there's more to it than that, and I think that's what public art is. It's a form of expression that is not strictly about buying and selling, like advertising or telling you where to go or what to do or instructions. For me, public space should represent multiplicity of the human experience as much as possible, because it's our shared space. That's what's so important about it. It's a space that we share, and obviously there is public art, but I find it's still fairly marginal in the big picture. It's a pretty marginal aspect of public expression. I'm hoping that the result will be appealing visually. It's important to at least try to create something that's visually appealing. The concept is not enough for me alone, but I think it is a big part of this piece, conceptual side of it, the performance aspect, if you will, the fact that it's done on a bicycle. And I think to be an artist alone is a process of survival and resistance. It's not a path of least resistance, the path of artists. It's quite tough, I would say, most people just to engage in art. It represents a revolutionary kind of way of thinking, because the reward for being an artist is not sort of the usual rewards that we seek in society, like, you know, money or comfort, stability. Choosing art as a pathway usually brings the opposite of that. But resist, I think the role of the artist is also to present an alternative to sort of the status quo, what we are familiar with, what we see all the time, and sort of the banal, the mundane, the everyday. I think the role of the artist is to present an alternative, and that, I think, is sort of a form of resistance. It's resisting the status quo, resisting the mentality, the usual, the normal.